So, the audience can make some questions, but I would like to start with a more general question, taking the opportunity of the presence of you all here to talk about e-commerce. I'd like to start with a question regarding the opportunities and the challenge of the e-commerce in Brazil, right? So I'd like to hear from any of you about these opportunities and challenges for the coming years. We have a sector that has grown on a secular pace, so it would be interesting to hear. Thank you.
First, thank you, Luis, for inviting me to come here. We're going to see a lot of opportunity in Brazil, mainly considering that nowadays e-commerce is only 5% of the market, considering the retail or in Brazil. And of course, a lot of challenge. The first one, we see the logistics in Brazil. This is a huge challenge. I think that companies struggling to deliver in 1 day, on the same day, or in 2 days in Brazil, the same as we have here in the United States. So I think in logistics direction, we have a lot of opportunities. Of course, when we do this, maybe we're going to have more than 10%, 15% of the e-commerce related to retail. And the second is inside of the business itself, the corporation itself. They're not structured to have e-commerce not as a vertical, but as a digital solution that cross the entire corporation. Like sometimes we talk to a customer that says that, e-commerce is a vertical. We have a store in some neighborhoods, another vertical, other store, or distribution center, other. So we have to change this kind of business idea. And so this is the barrier. And what we are doing in VTEX, I believe that the technology is not a problem. Technology, we're going to have that. After the corporation changes, we can use the technology in favor of the corporations. So in VTEX, our approaching is to develop more features and to use more omnichannel solutions like pickup store, deliver from store, and using your own store as marketplace. So with those features, you can do a kind of different architectural to solve your point of contact with your customer. And in VTEX, we are always also working in a new software framework. That is the VTEX.io, where you're going to have not only the VTEX platform itself, but you can make extension from VTEX to other software solution that developers can deploy those softwares to our customers. So I believe that with those tools, we can help our clients, that's retailers and brands, to go through e-commerce faster and better.
I think the question, Luis, was opportunities, right, in e-commerce in Brazil. And I think, Andrea touched upon some of the issues, right? Also, of course, what VTEX is delivering to its clients in terms of value proposition. I think from my perspective, and that might sound as a bit of a cliche, the opportunity in Brazil is just huge, right? 5% is to me, is a ridiculous number, right? And if you look for the past 5-10 years, that number hasn't been growing at all, right? Especially compared to other emerging economies, like I just came back from Russia recently. E-commerce as a percentage of total sales, it's almost 10%. It's almost twice as 2 times higher than Brazil. It is a country that has an equivalent GDP per capita, purchase power, equivalent digital population, right? And also an equivalent, very similar, I would say, a digital behavior as Brazilians, right? So this is Russia today. So the opportunity in Brazil is just incredibly huge, right? And we are here. BTG organized its first Tech Day. I really do hope this is one of the first of a very long series, because what we are doing right now as entrepreneurs, executives in the tech community, I've been working consumer internet for the past 6 years. I'm a youngster here in the US, but in Brazil, I'm already a veteran. I think it's just that, again, we're just scratching the surface. When you look at smartphone penetration in Brazil, it's just awesome. We have more smartphones than actually people now in Brazil, right? However, the cost of data is still very expensive. So people, they do have nice smartphones, but they don't have access to data because it's expensive. So another opportunity, right? Broadband, right? When you make sure that you really transform broadband into a commodity, right? I was again in Russia, and I'm comparing to Russia because I was there again a month ago with one of my investors, with Naspers. I was underground on the subway, Wi-Fi, 4G. Infrastructure-wise, Moscow, incredible, right? So they're fostering people, they're pushing people towards the digital channels because they understand that's where disruption, that's what's going to generate value for the population and for the country, right? If you do something similar in Brazil, imagine a country of our dimensions, right? Of all the wealth that we have. I think now we are finally getting over an economic recession, entering a very virtuous cycle. So again, if you do really small, I would say small incremental changes, it could have a huge impact. So from now from a more micro perspective in terms of OLX, what we tend to do every day is to think about our users first, right? What is it that users want, right? So by the way, OLX today is Brazil's, Latin America's largest online classifieds. We're the third or fourth largest digital online classifieds platform in the world, depending on what kind of metric you use. So essentially, you buy and sell used goods online with OLX. What we're trying to solve every day is what is it that our users want so as to make their lives easier, right? What is it that our customers want that we can deliver more value to them, right? What is it that we, as OLX, can do so as to have a competitive advantage vis-a-vis, the rest of the players in the marketplace? And then I include as competitors even traditional e-commerces, right? And also traditional marketplaces, even though we're not yet a transactional marketplace, and I'll explain that later on. But those are my initial 2 cents.
Hi, Luis. Thank you very much for inviting me to this first tech conference. I'm not sure I qualify to speak on a tech conference or e-commerce panel, but I'd like to state some facts about the pet care industry, which is an extremely interesting one. So 62% of Brazilians have a dog or cat at home. It's a $30 billion reais industry, very large. 88% of pet owners consider them part of the family. So it's extremely high touch and emotional. And 52% think taking care of pets is extremely hard work, which means very high frequency. So we believe digital indeed is a fantastic channel to make the life of pet parents easier. And Pet Love, which is a 20-year-old company, one of the pioneers in e-commerce, is integrating successfully vets, pet shops, offline pet shops, and the industry in a digital platform and ecosystem.
Thank you for inviting me. I guess for brick and mortar retailers, e-commerce is a huge opportunity, right? It's the chance we have to compete against the Amazons of the world. And because we can now fully connect the inventory and better serve the consumer regardless where he or she are buying. So the effort we've made at Centauro was to actually make the product available anywhere to anyone, meaning that you can buy online and pick up in a store or get this whatever you bought delivered to you within a day. And then we leverage every and each one of our 200 stores as shoppable distribution centers. So if you buy at Centauro nowadays, you have next day delivery throughout 100 cities, 100 different cities of Brazil. There's a big bump in the market a few days ago because one of the biggest players announced that it will have next day delivery, in 10 cities. And because we have the physical presence, actually over 50% of what we sell online is now served through a store. 30% click and collect and 20% ship from store. And e-com went from 11% in 2016 to almost 19% the first quarter of 2019. So e-commerce is a lever of growth, right? And it's a way to serve consumers. I mean, it's not up to us, to the company, to decide how will consumers buy, right? So they buy whatever they want, and we got to figure out a way to serve them, and e-commerce is a chance to do that.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you very much, all. Regarding this last topic, I think that this is very interesting because we have been seeing an increasing trend of the multi-channel proposition for all e-commerce players, right? How do you think that the market is prepared to integrate the physical retail with the online channel, right? I think this is quite of a challenge for most of the companies. As you mentioned, Pedro, probably Centauro is one of the few players that have already concluded this integration, right? But this is not an easy task. So if you could comment about this evolution of the integration between the online and the offline channel.
You know, in the end of the day, we talk a lot about omnichannel, but we as consumers are omnichannel, right? We navigate through the digital space and through the physical world smoothly, and it's we don't see the frictions on the way. So you check on Google, and you go buy something on a store. You go check the address on Google, and you don't feel that you're moving towards the digital space and the physical space. And actually, in our companies, what we do is that we create friction through the process. So the challenge is to put effort to take these frictions out of the way. So it is a big challenge, but it isn't that hard, in my opinion. It's really about getting committed to the fact that you got to serve the consumer whatever he or she is. As Andrea mentioned, the tech part is available, so you can find the systems. It's not that complicated to have something integrating the inventory across the all the distribution centers. The challenges are, in my opinion, the biggest challenges are culture-wise, are how to incentivize your salesperson to understand that e-commerce is not a competitor, how to make people actually promote what we're trying to do right now, which is, so if someone goes into a store, I would say that 3 years from now, and the product wasn't available, our salesperson will probably indicate a store next to ours, a competitor store next to ours. Say, hey, go buy there. And nowadays, you can buy online. You can buy through a system in the salesperson's phone, and you get it delivered at your house or at the store. So, yeah, logistic can be an issue, but there are a lot of entrepreneurs making this possible. So you have next day delivery through phone, and you have all the systems of a lot of companies that could be here making this available for the. We have scale, right? So we do 70% of our store system is with our own trucks. So we have the logistics infrastructure in place to serve the stores, and then we leverage innovators, we leverage startups to do the last mile. So in short, it's a long answer, but it's not that complicated in my opinion.
I think you touched upon a very, again, a very important aspect, which is user centricity, right? Being, as Bezos always says, being obsessed with your customer, right? And I think once you're ready, I mean, and that of course requires a lot of extensive user research, that requires you to do focus groups, things that people sometimes tend to overlook. Oh, why the heck am I going to speak to my customers? Why am I going to spend 2 days per week, trying to understand what are the brand new customer behaviors? What exactly do my customers want? What kind of customer satisfaction service am I running at my company, right? This is critical for success. Whether it's e-commerce, whether it's traditional marketplace, whether it's digital classifieds, you got to understand, you got to crack the code as to what your customers, what your users want, right? And then you start like top of the funnel, understand what they want, and then of course you build your omnichannel proposition, but the foundation has to be what your users want you to deliver in terms of value, right? In terms of how much value they're getting out of your proposition, right? So I think it sounds like a very simplistic triangulation, but it's not. It requires a lot of effort, right? And sometimes us as entrepreneurs or executives or whatever, we tend to, let's drill down the numbers. Let's try to understand, how much is going to be the growth next year. Let's understand what investors want in terms of, margins. But hold on, we forget the basics, right? What do users want, right? How can we deliver the best experience possible? And again, to my original point, how can we differentiate ourselves from competition? Is it cost? I don't think so, right? I mean, nobody here is playing the cost game, Right? At least I'm not. I want to differentiate myself by having a unique value proposition to my users, something that is sticky, right? Something that, today, just for a matter of reference, 90% of OLX users, they're recurring users. So these are people that have been using OLX forever, and they keep coming back. So I need to understand why they're coming back. I need to ensure that they continue to come back. Otherwise, my business won't ever be healthy. If I have to spend millions and millions of reais or dollars each and every year to acquire new customers, I'm dead. So understanding what are the user needs once again, and then building out my whole platform on top of that, right? And of course, looking out for competition, right? Seeing what the others are doing, what the others are doing well, and then eventually even copycatting. I don't have an issue with that as well. Or teaming up with, partnering, or eventually buying, right? If it's easier. We should also do it, right? But I think, again, top of the funnel, what the heck my user wants, right? What are they expecting from me? What are the pain points that I'm going to be solving for my users? And then that's the framework that we use so as to triangulate our whole theory, our whole strategy. And then again, we deliver value, and that value hopefully will convert into revenues.
Yes. So when we talk about pet care, about a third of the business is actually services from grooming, washing, veterinarian consultation, boarding, walking. So when you think about pet food, which is a third of the business, our subscription model is probably the most effective channel. It creates a whole deal of convenience. But as we think about other services, necessarily we have to find ways to integrate with veterinarians, with pet shops, to make sure that the experience for our consumers is seamless. So I think is more of a must than a need to have and to be present in all channels possible.
So I think Pedro said very well in the first sentence that culturally we have to change as retailers in Brazil and brands in general. And I think that Amazon is helping a lot because the brands is seeing that they are losing space for Amazon. And so they don't want to lose power. So they are changing, they are trying to go directly to the consumer. So VTEX is being helping of that. But culturally, it's difficult to handle these different scenarios, like when a customer buys something in your mobile, and you're gonna go pick up in the store, but this store has a different model of commission. So who will fulfill the package? And so this challenge is it looks like not so huge, but yes, it's huge inside the corporation, because sometimes the e-commerce manager is different than the brick and mortar stores manager. And so it's difficult to working on those different scenarios. The difficult is not technology at all, not technology nowadays, not technology. Technology is easy to do this, to integrate this. The difficult is people inside the corporation, people inside the physical store to fulfill and package, and the guy sometimes will lose the virtual line to attend a customer that is coming inside the store. So the corporation has to change their mind that they have to take care of their customers in any channel. And even after the sale of the product, if you are in a physical store buying a product, and you're gonna receive the product in your home because there isn't in this store, it's from the other store that will send to your home, and you don't like this, you have to return the product. So you have to contact the company again. So you as company has to work in this new environment where store is all store is a distribution center. All employees has to work in a new environment of commission, and you have to think about them. So I believe that the challenge, yes, is to change the way that usually retailer traditionally are working until now.
Let me barge in. Apologies once again, just because everybody's talking about culture, right? So culture, of course, is key. And then this is a question that I have for you guys, actually, because I'm glad I don't have physical presence, physical stores. I'm only moving pixels every day, not boxes. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Recently, I mean, one of the largest retailers in Brazil that also have started to have a pretty decent, pretty strong, I think, digital presence. They've announced a big reorg because they were acquired by a new pool of investors, right? And then something caught my attention, which was the fact that the COO of the business will be also responsible for HR. He will be also leading culture, right? And if I were an investor, if I were in your guys' shoes, that to me would be a very strong signal that that company knows what they're doing, right? At least conceptually. Because if they put the CEO, which is a guy that has a very strong tech background, as the one responsible for HR, he is going to be able, at least he has the framework or the tools to make sure that culture doesn't become an issue, right? And if culture is an issue, I think then when you look back to Brazil once again and to retailers that are trying to do the leapfrog towards e-commerce, you see that those that haven't gotten in there yet, my suspicion is that because of they lack the digital culture that is required for you to really become omni-channel, right? So I think this is like sort of like a provocation or question, because that to me was very sort of like, you use Amazon as an example, right? That to me was very like an Amazon-like type of move, because again, when you get someone that has a very strong tech footprint, and you say, look, that person is going to run my entire HR. He's going to be the culture ambassador within the whole company, bricks and mortar and digital. That to me shows that, you know what, those guys, at least conceptually, they know what they're going to do, right? I don't have a chief digital officer. I don't have someone that, you know, is going to try to run HR and culture, you know, that will be staying with me on the corner office. I have someone that actually understands the business, right? And he's responsible for making sure that, you know, alignment of incentives, compensation, all those issues that we have, right? Cannibalization, online versus offline, all those issues are very well taken care of. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, if I'm allowed to.
Perfect. So if you could start, Pedro.
Sure. There are a couple of things here, but in the very beginning, we do have stores, and they help a lot. And they help to have this presence, and it's amazing to me that we measure NPS. It's the best metric we have for satisfaction. And actually, I make money out of NPS as much as I make out of profit in our bonus pool, me and all the executives at the company. And the highest NPS we have is click and collect. So the consumer give us a better grade when he or she go pick up something at the store, even compared to same-day delivery. So you can buy the product and get it in your home the same day. When you go and talk to someone, and if you have an issue, if you want to return, you can actually have things solved for you. There's still value into that. I mean, we all traveled here to have a conversation. We could have been having this over video, right? There's some value into human interaction that it's, the fact of the matter, in my opinion, is that you gotta deliver that. If your store or if your physical presence is a place to transact only, so to trade product for money, then you're gone, because that's much efficient to do online. But if you're offering something else, and then maybe there's a way for the stores to work. But I agree with you in concept, and getting what you mentioned before and now, I guess it's about the starting point, which is the consumer, right? And then the areas almost don't matter. And so the way we see this is we try to solve a consumer's problem at a time, and then people get around if there are different expertises to solve that issue, right? So it is, in my take, it is the responsibility of the CEO, right, to actually put the right culture in place, and the right culture, in my opinion, is exactly that. How do we organize ourselves not through the functions and what is it that we're going to do with supply chain? It doesn't matter. What matters is how we're going to deliver faster. And then if it is supply chain, or if it is store operations, or if it is technology, it doesn't matter, right? We're gonna decide what is the best way to serve this consumer better. So I couldn't agree more that it starts with the consumer, and it's all about, that's the digital culture, right? It's not about the e-commerce or brick and mortar.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, it has to be, my personal perspective, it has to be top down, to your point, right? It starts with the CEO. Right? If the CEO is not really bought into it, I mean, it's not going to work, because he has to be another ambassador as well, of course, right? He has to have that sort of vision and understand that, first, before profits, he has to deliver value, right? And to deliver value, he has to have a very clear strategy, a very clear theory, of course, and then execute on that theory, right? And then, of course, also having the ability to pivot in the event he understands that, no, something's not working, let's change routes and let's do something else, right? But it's definitely top down, I agree.
Oh, perfect. If you could add, Andre, you would add something?
Yeah, just we have an example in Vitex that we have a huge brand in Brazil, that a company that has a lot of brands, different brands, in the fashion sector. And they were struggling to work with this situation to deliver from store with a lot of different store managers in the store. And as you told, guys, this came from the top down, like the executive level. They went to the store, they learn and teach how to fulfillment, to give the product to the customers. And then they saw the problem when they just connecting in Vitex, and then now we have the delivery from store, and it was a mess because they couldn't fulfill in 1 day or two as they promised. So they had to relearn it and to organize all the structure to work in this new environment. However, the sales people in the store learn as well that they not only has to sell in the physical store, but they have to fulfill the product to send to a customer that is in fact is their customers, because they will on the other day to return the product, for example, they will receive as a customer. So it's I think that as you said, it's a top down. You have to start in the top of the company.
Perfect. If you could add something, Pedro, about pet love. You guys are a niche player, so I guess, you're more embedded in the online world than, a multi-channel player. But you also have relationship with all the physical stores, right, with the vet. So if you could add on that.
Yeah, my limited observation shows that I agree with Pedro. Digital is more of a cultural and a way of doing things and being consumer-centric than having a tech background or finding how to go to the moon, like Andre said. So when you think about the consumer, in the case of pet, it's very relevant that we are able to also service our clients through physical stores. The market in Brazil, about 2/3 of it still are in 55,000 mom and pop shops who actually are seeing pet love as the way to find a digital strategy for themselves. So we are enabling all kinds of things like white label e-commerce stores for them. We are enabling even B2B. So we are delivering a lot of pet food and supplies to the pet shop owners. And we are very, very interested in our specific case, being a niche player, as you said, with veterinarians, like baby care. A pediatrician or veterinarian is a very relevant stakeholder to our business. We recently acquired VetSmart, which coming out of Brazil is the largest veterinarian app in the world. We basically have 140,000 veterinarians who are using our app 10.5 times every month to help them do their consultations, to prescribe medicine, to all kinds of things. And we have discovered that the vets themselves also want to be part of the digital economy. They want to be able to prescribe online. They want to have a CRM so they can better handle their patients. And we are fulfilling that value proposition to veterinarians who are in turn helping Pet Love become more of a content platform and not just a transactional platform. So we are every month trying to answer about 40,000 questions from consumers. Like we said, pet care is extremely intensive care. So all kinds of doubts and questions that we're able to now have veterinarians being paid to actually answer those questions. So I think it's a holistic approach. My limited experience shows that it has been easier to take Pet Love as an online pure breed digital player and integrate offline channels. But we also have success cases here in which predominantly offline players are finding their ways to win in the digital marketplace.
Oh, thank you. And I think that you all mentioned about one variable that is going to be quite important for the growth of e-commerce and the growth of retail in the coming years, which is the consumer's experience, right? In some extent, you guys have different business model, right? Some of them with multi-channel proposition, some pure online players, but it's all about the consumer experience. If you could comment about the next frontier of consumer experience in the coming years, right? We have been seeing services being offered in the platforms. We have been seeing payments being offered in the platforms. So if you could comment about that, and specifically with André, I think that it will be interesting to hear about how prepared are those sellers and those platforms to support this growth in the coming years.
Well, yes, I believe the point of contact with customers is very important, and I believe that this started with just an e-commerce and then the marketplaces, and now B2C website and all other approaches that this all omnichannel features and solutions that we can provide to our customers. I believe that in terms of technology, we won't have any barrier on that. I believe that we can. Of course, this is still going on, still developing features, not only ourselves, but the industry itself. But it's not that difficult to make contact with your customers in any place and time that they want. The problem is that sometimes the architecture that you're gonna build around that. So let's think about marketplace. Nowadays, we think that marketplace is kind of competitor of the brand, as I said before. However, any brand can be a marketplace itself. Sometimes they don't know that. If you go to, for example, a CNA website, you can buy a T-shirt. You can pick up the T-shirt in the CNA store, and you can buy at the same time a perfume. And the perfume the seller is Boticário. So you as a customer, you have more assortment in the platform, and so you're gonna go back to the website. So this is the Amazon way to approach that. We're gonna have more assortment. You can buy anything in Amazon. So in terms of technology, every store can do that. Every store can work with that. It's not so difficult to integrate this solution. As we are doing in VTEX right now with our 2,000 customers, they can sell each other in one day. You can just click and no other seller can sell in your website. So it's a matter of time that sometimes the brand has to offer other brands, for example, so that your customer is happy that when you go to your store, you're going to buy your brand and can buy other brands as well. So the same as Amazon is doing. So that's it.
Okay, perfect.
I was thinking on the omni-channel approach or looking for the customer, it's a stacked development, right? So I don't know whether this is the next phase to the industry, but it's the next phase to us, right? So we solved for the systems and the logistics, but we haven't solved for everything. So if you can imagine that a consumer that bought a lot online entered our store and we cannot recognize him or her, that's not good, right? I mean, we could have, the idea here would be, how can we make a better offer? And if we knew that this consumer was shopping for whatever, for kids, we could then try to solve the issue for him or her. So recognizing the consumer and using that data to make better offers, it will be the first step. We're capturing emails at the end of the journey at the store. We got to do it beforehand. And we also could leverage data to make better offers again. So we should. So if you go online, we should have contextualized the product offering to you so that you would find first what's closer to your home, right? Because as I mentioned, every store is a distribution center, and it might be the case that you're buying a T-shirt that it's in, I don't know, 1,000 kilometers away from you, and it would take a while for me to get it delivered to you. So maybe we could develop the website to offer you first what's 1 day away from you. And finally, we measure everything we do at the store, right? So it takes 20 out of 100 consumers that enter our store and sits on the bench, 52 buy a pair of shoes, right? And the average time of this purchase is 21 minutes. And during these 21 minutes, the consumer is telling us so much about his or her experience, and we don't use any of this data. So there could be a way for us to capture that conversation and then retarget that online, right? Retargeting is a great ROI, and we could then send an email that is not a mass email, but saying, hey, you went there and you mentioned whatever, and I have this for you. Or we could follow the eyes and say, hey, the salesperson could do that. Say, that consumer didn't buy anything, but he looked at whatever pair of shoes. And then we could send an email afterwards, say, hey, that pair of shoes that you looked for is some promotion or something along those lines. So I guess the next phase for us in terms of consumer experience is to be able to help consumers make decisions, starting with purchase, right? So help them purchase on an easier way, going from recognizing them to more sophisticated things, such as using listening devices and machine learning to have better recommendation.
So when you talk about consumer experience, we have a very successful case here in the US. Chewy is close to $11 billion company. Again, yeah. So they are, again, a specialized pet care company, and they have found ways to really create a strong value proposition to consumers. When you talk about pet love and trying to replicate the success of Chewy, the next wave of consumer experience will be, in many ways, predictive. Like we said, pet care is highly intensive and hard work. We are finding ways now through our subscription model to make sure that the pet owners can be compliant with the medicine that dogs and cats need to take, to make sure that they can comply with a nutrition program that we can better tailor for the specific breed or specific health issues that dogs and cats can have. And we are doing that through a very strong predictive data strategy. We are implementing all kinds of things like collars with IoT, feeders that allow us to go back to our consumers and say, hey, I think you're about to run out of pet food, and maybe you should restock. So definitely we are taking an approach of integrating the data. If there's an online consultation that is happening with our vet network, we know what's being prescribed. We can help consumers stay compliant with whatever was that. That's also a success factor for the veterinarians themselves. So integrating all the data, I think, will make the life of pet parents much easier and rewarding.
From my perspective, I think I love to keep things as simple as possible again. So one, we don't use internally to use the word CX, customer experience. We use customer journey because we think it may sound like BS, but we think that it encompasses a wider spectrum of steps, and it forces us to really understand, once again, the behavior of our customers, right? Customers and non-customers, non-users as well, right? So one, I think you got to have the basics in place, right? And we call it the impeccable basics, right? So your journey, when you look at your funnel, when you look at the conversion rates, top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, end of the funnel, there has to be no leakage, right? And if there are any leakages, conversions are low for some reason, you got to understand what the heck is going on, right? This is one, right? Because that means something is wrong with the experience of buying and selling something online at OLX, right? So we got to tackle those problems out. I think secondly, in my personal case, I'm not quite sure how is that applicable to my peers here on stage. It has to be multi-channel. And by multi-channel, I mean we got to deliver a superior experience desktop, mobile site, and app-wise as well, right? Everything has to be coordinated, hyper-integrated, and responsive, right? I am a heavy user of technology, right? But I don't like apps. But I do buy stuff online at M sites, mobile sites, right? And sometimes, companies have amazing apps, but the M site experience is awful. It's just terrible. So come on, this is impeccable basics. You got to get it right before you start thinking about, what, I'm going to add up, a wallet. I'm going to add, I'm going to become a super app. I'm going to use the next buzzword, whatever that I just saw on TechCrunch. Forget about all the crap, right? Get our basics in place immediately so that you can scale, right? So that's our approach. In terms of what's next for us, I think, again, we're digital classifieds. By nature, we are O2O. We're online to offline, offline to online, because today, when people transact on OLX, even though the whole negotiations, they take place online, the actual physical and financial settlement takes place offline. So, for instance, the wallet, in our case, is a necessity. When we do user researches, and again, user centricity, user obsession, right? When we do all those focus groups, our users, they tell us, Joe, OLX, give us a payment method, right? Give us convenience. Give us a way to transact online through OLX. And that's a big opportunity, right? And then on top of that, when you actually look at our user base, and this is something that I really want to highlight to all of you guys here today, our user base, OLX is a very democratic brand, I'll put it this way, right? Classifieds, used goods. Our user base is a proxy of Brazil. What does that mean? It means that almost 50% of our users, they don't have a bank account, no access to plastic, right? So by the time we actually are able to offer a digital solution for them to transact online, whether it's a wallet, whether it's a full-blown payment method, we already have the escrow for certain categories, right? By the time we're able to have this full value proposition online, we think for us it's going to be a game changer, right? And differently from what's happening in the markets now, right? Because everybody's launching wallets now, right? Everybody's becoming a fintech. Everybody wants to, to become the next Nubank or the next, you name it, next Venmo, PayPal, Stripe, etc. You have to think about first what value, again, to my original point, are delivering to your customers, right? Why are they going to use their wallet as opposed to VTEX wallet, as opposed to Pat Love's wallet or to Centauro's wallet, right? What are you doing different? What is that you're doing differently that people will actually, when they open up your app or when they go to your end site, they're going to see the widget, OLX wallet. Hey, by the way, I'm going to use it because it makes sense, because I have, this A, B, and C advantages, because I can swap it for a loyalty points on other programs, because I love the brand, I love OLX, I want to buy more and more at OLX, so on and so forth. So I think, one, get your basics right, make sure a funnel doesn't have any leakages, and make sure you're delivering something that is simple, something that is fast, and something that is solving real pains of your users, right? Real pain points of your users. And then you move on to another layer, which is, okay, what else can I offer on top of that? What is my competition is offering that I can also do it myself, or again, to my original point, that I can even team up with or I can buy off the shelf? Because I know all of them here, all of my peers mentioned, technology today is becoming more and more of a commodity. I think is the how you use it that differentiates you from the others, right? In our case, just to wrap up my comment, our wallet, we're not building it in-house because our core business is classifieds. So that has to be in-house. But our wallet, we're building with a partner, right? A partner has all the backbone, all the experience, all the scalability, all the tech stack that we need, right? We have 7.5 million daily active users on our platform. It's going to be, not impossible. It's going to be extremely hard for us, in terms of opportunity costs for us to build that in-house. So why not team up with someone that knows how to do it, right? So that's exactly what we're doing right now. We have teamed up with the company that we understand is one of the best in that field, and they're building the wallet for us, right? And by the way, hopefully by Q1 next year, it's going to be live to the whole market within our app, M site, and desktop as well.
Oh, perfect. I would like to take the opportunity about what you mentioned about payments to understand of the other peers, right? About the role of payments in the consumer's experience, because it's not only the frictionless experience to the consumer, it's also the trust, right? Building trust.
Super important.
And this is quite important. So if you could also comment on that, because I think this is going to be a very important topic in the coming years when we talk about e-commerce.
Going back to my original point with respect to user research, so when we list our user pain points, it boils down to two: convenience, and by convenience we read as offering a smooth payment experience online through OLX, and then trust and safety. Right? And I think trust and safety in general is one of the key barriers for e-commerce growth in Brazil, for sure. I believe by the time we're able, us together, right, the tech community, to do forums like this one here, to educate the markets. That's what we're doing in terms of avoiding frauds, avoiding bad tech users, making sure that we are teaming up with law enforcement, making sure that we're really elevating trust and safety to a whole new level. I truly believe that that's going to be a game changer in terms of e-commerce adoption in Brazil. So I think your question is great. So in my particular case, again, user pain points are top of mind, convenience during the transaction, which we learn as we want a payment method, and we're going to do that. And then, of course, trust and safety is another one, which is also something that we take very, very serious at OLX, and is, I think, at least for the last 2 years, our biggest bucket of investments in terms of R&D.
I have two short examples of actual projects we've put in place in regards to payment that have boosted or unlocked satisfaction, consumer satisfaction and growth. One is in the new stores we call G5 stores, you pay just like you pay in an Apple store. So you're served by someone, and when you finish, you pay directly to any of our associates. And that's the highest factor for the NPS growth in those stores, because payment is a friction. So if you're providing a solution that is as convenient as possible, consumers get more satisfied. And the second one is it took us quite a while to be able to sell products that were not available at that store. So we're trying to convince consumers that if they couldn't find something at the store, they could buy something from our catalog, some product that was available in any other store or distribution center, but it never worked. And then the solution was payment again, because the consumer that was at the store did not want to put his payment information on a device. So when we finally made available to pay at the store, so you can buy online, but you can pay right away, actually it skyrocketed. And we're now selling quite a huge, well, not quite a huge, but we're selling a lot of products that are not available at that store. So I guess that getting payments right is key.
Yes, so I'm going to deviate a little bit from the payment equation, which I agree with my colleagues here, fundamental for the convenience, for the friction. In our case, again, being a niche player, we're very interested with all the financial instruments who can unlock a lot of value for the pet care. So insurance is extremely important. Like we said, taking care of pets is an expensive proposition. You will never anticipate all kinds of questions associated with the health and well-being of the pets. And we think, again, that the digital channel is really a fantastic way for us to create more affordability in the category. And so financing and insurance built on a loyalty platform can be tremendously important for what we're trying to accomplish.
So in VTEX, it's interesting that in terms of this friction of payment and checkout, we launched it 6 years ago, the smart checkout, the checkout that we've been using in VTEX until now. This changed totally the way that VTEX, that customers see VTEX in the market. So the conversion rate when we launched this smart checkout was increased around 30% when all customers migrate to this smart checkout. It was a one-click checkout. So when you go back to the website that you had bought before, you can buy just use your 3 numbers of CVV of your card, just that. So you can see that we avoid friction. You're gonna save much faster, much easier. And in terms of payment, nowadays we have a lot of possibilities. You can split your payment of your card with friends. For example, if you want to buy a gift for someone else. And also you can integrate with loyalty program, and so you can spend this in the store. It's interesting that, for example, here in the United States, you're gonna go to Amazon to buy a product. You can spend your reward points of other program that you have in your card without you don't need to withdraw the points to Amazon.
It's the integration, right?
It's integrated. Yeah, you can see. So it's without friction. You don't need to talk to anyone. You just click, just plug. It's easy. So I think the idea of payment in the customer side, not to the e-commerce manager, is that you have to reduce friction and time all the time.
Oh, perfect. On another topic, right? We talked about consumers' experience, but there is also an important topic on e-commerce, which is traffic, right? How can you generate traffic, and especially how can you generate organic traffic, right? And you guys, OLX, Pet Love, Centauro, you all have, a very strong organic traffic, which in my view, it's one of the pillars behind the success of any e-commerce platform worldwide. If you could also comment about the challenge, right, to keep growing this organic traffic in the coming years, because on the other hand, we see an increasing price for acquiring traffic, right? So this has cost more and more for the companies, and I think, I don't know about you, but I think that this is a source of consolidation of the market in the coming years. I don't know if you agree with this assumption.
Can I start?
Yeah.
I think one, there's no, and I always tell that, one, there's no silver bullet with respect to growth, right? People, they tend to think, I'm a growth hacker, I'm going to do A, B, C, and D. I'm going to be, the most fastest scalable company in the world. That's not how, unfortunately, that's not what's going to happen, right? So you really have to approach growth systematically. And you're totally right? If you're able to reach a position whereby most of the largest chunk of our traffic is either direct or organic, you're definitely in a very good situation, right? And then from there, and this is me speaking here, and again, going back to basics, it goes back to engagement. It goes back to, engagement and retention, right? If you're able to engage and retain your user base, and that user base is already non-paid, or it was paid 3-4 years ago, and that cost has been diluted by a very, very long time, and you're essentially getting those repeat transactions essentially for free, straight down to your bottom line. I mean, that's magical, right? You nailed it, right? So people tend to think about growth as acquiring new customers. How am I going to spend my marketing budget? How am I going to invest in new channels? How am I going to invest in whatever growth hacking strategy, A, B, and C, which is just read in a very nice blog at Medium. Take a step back, right? Look at what you already have in-house. How can you actually deliver to those existing users that you already have, you already own, you already acquired, a superior customer experience, right? How can you engage with them? How can you reactivate them? How can you make them, how can you incentivize the repeat behavior? How can they transact more and more and more into our platform? Because most of the times, and again, it's 6 years of consumer internet. You know, it's not a long time, but I think I've seen some stuff. I would say that, you know, the vast majority of times, if you're able to incentivize repeat behavior, it pays off. You know, it delivers a superior ROI as opposed to acquiring new customers. Period. Right? And then, of course, if you think you're just squeezing or milking your existing customers too much, or squeezing too much juice out of existing fruits, and of course, then you have to think about growth once again. But you've done already the hardest part, which is, you know, having an engaging, loyal user base. And then it comes down to growth. I mean, there are many strategies that you can use. I think in our particular case at OLX, it goes back to one of the original points that we have already talked upon, which is building trust, right? Communicating, educating the markets, the Brazilian consumers, that buying and selling online used goods, it's safe, it's convenient, right? It's a good way for you to make money. It's a good way for you to buy good stuff at affordable prices, right? So for us, just it's much more a matter of educating the markets the way we have been doing for the past 6-7 years, as opposed to doing this particular growth hack technique. Again, this is just me speaking, and that applies particularly to my case, to OLX. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say.
Yes. So as we were making our decision to invest in Petlove, the way the company built its traffic was something that really called our attention. Petlove today has the 4th largest traffic online for pet anywhere in the world, and the cost for acquisition of consumers have dropped 63% since 2016. That's fundamentally due to the subscription model that really create the engagement that Joel was talking about, and also how we approach our content strategies. So nowadays, a lot of our traffic is coming based on search engine optimization, things like breeds. So if you would type, say, Shih Tzu, you probably end up in a blog with other Shih Tzu owners online, and you can swap pictures. You can talk about your dog. So that has been very effective to build, I think, a very competitive proposition along bringing more people online. This is pet care is still very underpenetrated online. It's only about 3.5% of the market, but we believe that as we integrate services, content, and product offerings, we probably will see strong penetration in the next few years.
We're trying to do a little bit of, so we fully agree on a couple of things. One, we're trying to leverage the investment we already make. So let's say we pay rent, and people go to our stores, so we're trying to identify those consumers and then reach out to them afterwards. So that reduces the acquisition cost. Second, and I don't think usually companies pay enough attention to retention. So you have a lot of customer acquisition managers. You don't have customer retention managers, and you should have, because they're already there and thinking on how to make more out of the consumers that already like you is the second strategy to keep the organic growth high. And finally, try to go beyond transacting products. So especially because we're a vertical player and we compete, one of the strategies for our competitors is to have multiple transactions because they are selling all kind of stuff, right? So consumers are back more often. They use their websites and their apps more often. So in order for us to compete, we gotta have DAF. Since we don't have the breadth, we gotta have DAF. So we gotta be the solution for sports. So we gotta be in a place where consumers, when they think about anything related to sports, when they think about buying a pay-per-view fight or renting a bike or finding a personal trainer, they gotta think of us, and they gotta go to our stores, to our app, to whatever, to our website to solve for that. So those would be the 3 things that we're focusing on.
So I believe that nowadays, customer, as I totally agree with Joel, that customer experience is very important. It's the most important thing that the companies has to look at to acquire customers, because it's nowadays everyone do media in Instagram, WhatsApp, and a friend of you go to some place and buy something, and if he's happy, he will tell you, and you're gonna buy it, and so all the guy will gonna buy other thing again. So customer experience is really important. NPS, and so those metrics try to give the customers the most high quality of services that you can do. You are kind of investing in acquiring new customers. Just doing that.
Perfect. I think we ran out of time despite the useful discussion here. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you for the discussion.